from about slide 25 of your slides, the ones that I referred you to, that's really when we start looking at the specific concepts as discussed in the textbook. And so concepts like scarcity, choice, opportunity cost, we discuss those using a PPF as an illustration. The production possibilities frontier, sometimes it's called a frontier, sometimes it's called a boundary, sometimes it's called a curve. And it's very useful to us in relating to us the concepts that are very important that's discussed in often the first few chapters of textbooks, of economics textbooks. Formally, on slide 26, I say to you that economics is formally defined as a study of how individuals, societies, firms, organizations choose, the key word, choose, to use scarce resources, another key word, scarce resources, that nature provides as well as previous generations have left behind. So the key words there really are choosing, which is choice, and scarce, which is scarcity, as provided either by nature or previous generations. Another important concept there to include would be the opportunity cost, and that really relates to choice, choosing. So when you're choosing something, you're letting go of the thing that you're not choosing. And you'll see how I explain that concept, which is labeled opportunity cost in economics. So the idea that you can't have it all, you know, you can't be here, you can't be at every place at the same time. If you chose to be watching this video, there's something else that you are not doing, and that something else is your opportunity cost for example. And those concepts are very important in economics because as societies, as individuals, as organizations, we have to make these decisions where we either consume something and we're not consuming something as individuals. If we are firms or producers, we choose to produce a particular product in all the other alternatives that we are excluding from our production. And sometimes we can group the products that we are producing, and so a bundle of products could be produced, but there's all the other possibilities that we're letting go of because we've got scarce resources, limited resources, and time is one of the most important resource that we have in terms of economic production. In any case, so those are the two concepts. So I've already said to you that trade is important. Choice, being able to choose what you want to buy and have that product available in the market, that is important. We can talk about these concepts using a graph, which I said is called a PPF, a possibilities production frontier. In some textbooks, this is referred to as a frontier. In other textbooks, it's referred to as a curve. In other textbooks, it's referred to as a boundary. I think in your textbook, we refer to this function as a frontier. And this is a very nice tool. Again, this also illustrates the way that economics or economic concepts are represented or presented in a formal language. This is a model that does that very efficiently to show us what really choice means in economic terms, to show us what scarce resources mean, and also what the costs are of producing something against not producing something else. So you could imagine an economy that has a choice of producing two types of goods And those goods could be capital-intensive goods, or they could be labor-intensive goods. So think of an economy that could be producing consumer goods or capital goods. You know, think of agricultural goods that are very labor-intensive. Think of computers, you know, sort of technological goods that could be produced on one side. And given the limited resources of labor, the limited resources of equipment that exists in this community, this economy could choose to use all its available resources to produce a number of goods which are capital goods. So somewhere there, maybe say about 100 different types of capital goods, right? Or it could use all its energies and produce only labor-intensive goods. Maybe it could produce, say, 1,000 labor-intensive goods or consumer goods. So, and it could produce 100 units of capital goods and do this by using all its available resources efficiently. If it doesn't choose to do that, it could produce labor-intensive goods by channeling all its available resources and produce those types of goods, 1,000 of those units. And it would be doing this efficiently at those points. But it could also decide to produce a combination of the two goods. You know, it could decide to produce, say, maybe say about 70 of these types of goods, and maybe somewhere there it could be producing, say, about 600 of labor-intensive goods. You know, that's a combination, and it would be doing this efficiently. Or it could choose to produce even less of capital-intensive goods and produce more of labor-intensive goods. So say maybe to produce only 30 of capital-intensive goods and say 900 of labor-intensive goods. And you can see already there that what I'm saying is really about choice. So it would have a choice of producing, you know, using what is available in terms of resources, and then decide to produce this, be this type of an economy, capital-intensive economy, or a labor-intensive economy. So this economy could produce somewhere at that point, which we call point A, or it could produce at that point we could call point B. And this point, we said earlier on it was possible, and that point was also possible. So that could be point C, and that could be point D. So here we are. Now we have a curve that connects all the points that are possible in our economy, given the resources that are available. So point C is a possible production point. Point D is a possible production point. Point A is a possible production point, as well as B, using all the available resources efficiently. So there are no people who are being unemployed in this economy. There is no equipment that is standing idle somewhere. Everything is working, and there is production taking place in the economy. So that's one concept of what is possible efficiently. And in fact, in some textbook, this line is referred to as an efficiency line, because that's what it represents, efficient production. But another concept that is represented by our graph is the fact that we've got a choice. Choice to produce on any of them. We can't be producing at A and point B at the same time, but we've got a choice to be there, you know, given our values as society. So for instance, if we're not a very technological society and we've got very low skills, we could have a political choice to be a labor-intensive economy and have all the labor force being employed in the production process. And that is really about values and choices within that particular economy in producing labor-intensive goods, manufacturing goods, agricultural goods, etc. Or we could be like all the other sort of, technological economies, producing TVs, DVDs, machines, video cameras, as I'm using it right now, which is made in South Korea. And we could choose to be that type of an economy as well. So that is about choice. But we can't choose to be here and there all at the same time. We have to make up our minds what kind of an economy and that is really what is reflected in policy documents on industrial development. The NDP report, the NGP report in South Africa are often about documents that articulate what kind of an economy we want to be. And they often target specific sectors which we're going to promote from the perspective of government. So, for instance, could be there, could be there. But the point I'm trying to say is that if we decide to move from here to there, we are making a decision which has got a cost. So, for instance, instead of producing 1,000 units of labor-intensive goods, could move to B and produce only 900. And what would that mean? That would mean that we're moving from producing 0 of capital goods, I said 30 of capital-intensive goods. So the opportunity cost of producing from 0 to 30 capital goods is what we are letting go of. In this case, it would be 100 units of labor goods. So the opportunity cost of 30 capital goods equals to 100 units of labor-intensive goods. That's what really opportunity cost is about. And in your slides, I give you various examples and ask you questions on how to work out various opportunity costs as we move along our production frontier, the PPF. So you can also work out wherever you are what the opportunity cost is of moving from producing 0 labor-intensive goods to 600. What is the opportunity cost of producing 600 of labor? So we'll be moving from point C to point A. And the opportunity cost is always in terms of the good that we're letting go of. So in this case, it would be capital-intensive goods. So producing 600 labor-intensive goods means that we're moving from point C to point A, so we're letting go of 30 capital goods, 100 minus 70, etc., etc. Also go to the examples that I've used on your slides and also in the textbook. Another concept that is important, that is very well represented or illustrated by this frontier or this model, is the fact that I've already told you that point C, point A, and point D, and point B are all efficient choices. But say an economy had lots of unemployment and there were lots of other capital resources that were not being used, that economy would not be functioning optimally or efficiently and would probably be producing somewhere there. And we call that an inefficient point in production. So imagine that here we only have got one point where we've got on one side, on the y-axis, capital-intensive goods and labor-intensive. But these could be sort of various points, given the number of units or products that we're producing in our economy. In fact, if we're not limited to a two-dimensional space, we could represent this as a line or a plane or an area of inefficiency. In any case, we've grouped our resources or our products into two, Y and X. And then we've got one point, D, there, where we're not being efficient. We could also have another point there where we are more labor intensive and less capital intensive, but still inefficient. or we could be somewhere there where we are more capital intensive, but we're still not on this frontier, and that means therefore that we are not being efficient. Some resources are lying idle, unemployment if it's labor, or technology if it's equipment. So all of this is possible. All of this is possible. All these points, C, A, B, D is possible, including F, D, E. They're all possible. Hence, production possibilities frontier. But on the line, that is the boundary. You know, we can't cross that boundary given the number of resources that we have currently. So we would not be able, for instance, to produce at a point, say, G, which is outside that boundary, at a particular time. It would have to take us economic growth. You know, economic growth, we get more of the technology, we invest in technology over time, and we educate, we get more people participating in the labor force, and that labor force becomes of a high quality where they're highly educated, and then we experience economic growth. We are moving the frontiers outward, you know, the production frontiers. So point G is only attainable once we've achieved some level of economic growth. And that is a long-term process. But moving from point D, F, it's really about how we're mixing our resources. You know, it's about efficiency, that we're using our resources. If it's not, we don't leave some of the resources lying idle without being used. So this is really about mix, allocation of resources to be able to be there. Systems, getting the systems right, getting the plans right, and then being efficient, operating on that line. And this is about education over a long time, where we skill the labor force, and then we start pushing the frontier, and we invest in technology. So those are also the two concepts that are being illustrated by PPF, PPF, or PPC, or PPP. It's efficiency, economic efficiency, and economic growth. You know, this is more short-term. Efficiency, well, it can be sorted out by a good plan, but economic growth, you know, takes a while. It's a long-term, medium to long-term process. It takes a long time to skill the labor force. In a way, so those are the concepts that are illustrated by PPF. Firstly, it's scarcity, that we've got a limited resources that we can produce as an economy. Secondly, it's choice, choosing whether to produce at C, whether to produce at A or at B. That is about choice. And then the cost of our choices. If we move from point C to point A, what are we letting go of? What is being forgone? That is the opportunity cost. So from C to A, to gain 600 of labor-intensive goods, what is being forgone? What is being forgone to get that? That is opportunity cost. Beyond that, we talk about being efficient and being able to produce at that frontier, and being inefficient and producing at those points inside the PPF, versus what is not attainable, point G, at least not in the short term when we have not experienced economic growth. Really, that's what the PPF is relating to us. And it's a nice way of summarizing what economics and economic production and choices are really about.